I first started competing in bikini competitions in 2018. Then I went on to competing in competitions in 2019, and then I did my most recent show back in 2020 during the midst of the pandemic. So I've done a total of 4 shows, and I really thought that I was going to be stepping on stage again in 2022, and here I am sitting on my bed, and I have not competed since 2020. So let's talk about it. For those of you who don't know, I actually used to compete in bikini competitions, as you just saw. And I used to make a couple of videos regarding my bikini competition journey and what that was like for me. What were some things that I would eat during the week, what the behind the scenes looked like in terms of the prep, and what show day looked like. And this had played a pretty big role in my life for, about 2 or 3 years. And then out of nowhere, I just realized that this was something that I no longer wanted to do anymore. So I want to talk about it because it's been a really long time since I've addressed like an update with my physique, whether or not I'm gonna get back on stage again. And the short answer is no, but I want to go into more depth about the why behind all of it. I think one of the biggest things that is pretty obvious when it comes to competing is that it is exhausting. When you are preparing for a competition, it takes out all of your energy. It's very time consuming, and I was just simply starting to get very fatigued, and eventually it started making me build a really terrible relationship with the gym. I remember with my last prep, I had to work out without a gym because it was during the pandemic. I could only use a couple of weights at home, but even when I wasn't competing during the pandemic, there were times where I'd have to work out twice a day, we call it 2-a-days, where I'd be doing cardio twice a day, and I was doing so much cardio because I had so much fat to shed. And it also made me feel some kind of way about my body that like I had so much fat that cardio was gonna be the only way to get that off on top of the weight training. And I was also losing a lot of muscle because I was consuming fewer calories. And so working out all the time for at least like 2.5 hours of my day, it is a lot. And it got to the point where once I started reversing and I still had to be working out almost like 6 days a week, I was starting to burn out. I was starting to resent the gym. And I developed a little bit of a bad relationship with the gym where it felt like going to the gym and working out was going to be a chore for me. And it should never feel that way. Like going to the gym and working out should feel very exciting. It should be very releasing and therapeutic. And it just wasn't feeling like that for me anymore. And it's been a little over a year since I've been in the gym, which is really sad. And I do have plans to like make my way slowly back into the gym because I do miss weightlifting and I do want to rebuild some muscle that I have lost just so it kind of keeps me a little bit healthy. And it just puts me at a healthy body weight. That's the first reason as to why I really wanted to stop and take a step back from competing, is because the fatigue, the constant gym burnout, and just the mental and physical toll that it just simply took on my body. It's not fun, and I don't want to experience that ever again. The second biggest thing about competing that you need to know that makes me not want to do it again is how expensive it is. Competing is so expensive. You are paying for your suits, your shoes, the competition costs, the registration costs. Well, I can tell you that's the same thing. You're paying for your NPC card, you're paying for the coaching, the food that you have to buy. With my last competition, I definitely spent at least over $3,000, and that's a lot of money. And that was during the pandemic where I got laid off and I was working a part-time job, 2 part-time jobs plus unemployment because I wasn't making enough to still not be able to qualify for unemployment benefits. And it was just a lot of money that I shouldn't have had to spend, but I chose that because that was a choice that I wanted to invest my money in at the time. Probably not the smartest one, but still. And it's just a lot of money. So competing is just so expensive. And right now, I just don't have the energy to put my money towards a competition and all the coaching costs, because coaching is a huge factor of where that money goes to. So if you don't need to buy a new suit or new shoes or like buy any new stuff, the bulk of your expenses will go towards your food and your coaching and your supplements. And that adds up a ton. And I just financially am not in a place where I want to compete, especially ever again, because of how expensive it really is. Reverse dieting, let's talk about that really quick, because reverse dieting really sucks and it is so hard. I think it's even harder than doing a whole prep, because you're slowly building up your caloric intake and you're still having to be consistent in the gym. And I was still having to track my food. I still felt slightly restricted. I definitely had more flexibility, but it still felt like I didn't have flexibility. I still had to do a ton of cardio. I still had to put a lot of work into the gym and wait for my coach to gradually increase the amount of food that I could eat. It was just simply something that I just couldn't really keep up with anymore. I just felt like reverse dieting really just added more stress and anxiety to me, and that was something that I just absolutely didn't need in my life anymore. I don't want to put my body through more stress and anxiety when I'm already dealing with it enough of it myself as is. The fourth thing that also kind of makes me not be able to compete again, I don't know of any competitors who have competed with this, but I've talked about this before. But back in December, I was recently diagnosed with mild gastroparesis, and I don't know of a single competitor who's competed with gastroparesis. I would be surprised if they exist. But gastroparesis is basically where your stomach is partially paralyzed, and it basically impacts your stomach emptying and it delays it. While you're on a competition diet, that's absolutely not going to work. When you have gastroparesis, I just don't see that really working with the competition lifestyle, because this can impact like how much food I may or may not be eating. So now that I have this, it's really hard for me to eat. So I can eat about like 1 to 3 times a day. Sometimes after breakfast, I'm full for like half the day. I may not start getting hungry till maybe close to dinner time. My appetite basically feels suppressed, but that's really because my stomach hasn't fully emptied and I am just not hungry because my food hasn't properly digested. So I don't see how that would work out with the competition lifestyle. Plus, my stomach has a really tough time digesting a lot of foods. I have to be on a low fiber, low fat diet, and vegetables, especially a lot of raw vegetables, play a huge role into your competition diet. I can only have my vegetables cooked and grilled. Now, that's not to say that I could probably find ways to work around that, but I really don't want to, just because vegetables are still really hard for me to digest, period. And it's just going to impact my nausea. I would be throwing up, and it's just not a healthy thing to put my body through. I think it's safe to assume that gastroparesis and bikini competitions or bodybuilding do not go hand in hand together whatsoever. And then the last thing, I think this is the most obvious one, is that I no longer feel restricted with my life. When I was competing, especially like within the last month up to my show, my diet was incredibly restrictive. And it was actually really concerning to my friends because I was eating roughly around 800 calories. I wasn't eating a lot of food. I feel like I've developed a small eating disorder, which I'm still trying to, work with. And it's really nice to just be able to eat what I want when I want. And I just really like the idea of just being able to intuitively eat. And also with gastroparesis, I feel like this is something that I have to be more mindful with because my weight is now starting to drop again. Because after I started reversing, I became the heaviest I'd ever been. I think the highest I hit was 142. I'm now 135. So my weight has dropped a little bit. And that is because I haven't been eating as much due to my diagnosis. And I really hope that I don't continue to go below 130 because then I'm going to start getting concerned. Anyway, as you can see, it's just really nice to not feel constricted, that I'm able to enjoy a glass of wine with my friends, or I'm able to go out to a restaurant and enjoy things that I have to eat. I don't have to take my disgusting food with me in containers and feel miserable and feeling left out. Yes, that's part of the experience, but it's not something that I really want to put myself through again. I want to be able to live my life guilt-free, and just the whole competition lifestyle has started to make me feel really guilty about what I choose to put in my body. And I don't want to live like that anymore. But that's the truth on why I have decided to retire from the bikini competition world. Now, I just want to say I absolutely respect the sport. I respect all the people who compete to this day, and I will continue to root for them. I still root for all of my previous coaches, all of the women that I have met within competing, because I will say through this sport, it has a great community. And I've met a lot of amazing people throughout my competition journey. And I was really surprised with how not catty the sport really is, because we can all really relate to one another. And we're all going through a really similar experience that we can bond over greatly. And I've made a lot of good friends and acquaintances because of competing, and I'm so grateful for my experience, and I can't say it was all bad because the community is honestly stronger than ever, and I will always be rooting for people that I know that still want to compete. Because again, there's so much respect for this sport and it will forever hold a special place in my heart. I'll never forget it. I just had to come to terms that I had to close this chapter and hang up my heels because it just wasn't going to be sustainable for me anymore. But I will never be anti-bodybuilding and I will forever support those who continue to do it. Because this sport is not for everyone. And once upon a time it was for me, and now just everything that I've been through the past couple of years, it's just no longer for me and it no longer works in my lifestyle, and that's okay. So now you know the honest truth about why I'm no longer a bikini competitor. As I mentioned, I'm forever grateful for the experience, so I'm curious to know if you once competed, have you ever felt this way? Let me know down below in the comments if you can relate, and if you liked this video, do make sure you give it a thumbs up, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!